Hey everyone, welcome back to Your Enneagram Coach, the podcast. I'm Adam Breckenridge, Director of Coaching here at Your Enneagram Coach, and I am joined today by my good friend, co-founder of Your Enneagram Coach, the one and only, Jeff McCord. Hey Jeff.
The one and only. I think there actually is another Jeff McCord out there, but he killed somebody in Georgia maybe. So I don't want to be associated with him.
He shot a man in Reno just to watch him die, is what happened.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm sorry, I don't live that provocatively, but yeah, I am one of the two, maybe three. I think there was maybe like a Jeff McCord who was a leader in Tennessee, maybe some kind of government official. But okay, there are a couple of Jeff McCords out there. Are there any other Adam Breckenridges that you come across?
Not that I've ever come across.
Yeah, try Googling your name and see what happens.
Be careful.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know.
Yeah.
What's gonna,
clearly, I've found, I'm a politician and a murderer in other states. So, yikes. I'm just trying to be myself. It's enough, much less.
That's all I'm trying to be these days, you know. now that I'm officially in the second half of life, Jeff, I'm tired of being anybody but me. So I'm just trying to be me nowadays. You know?
Just trying to be me.
Full-time job.
Right.
Trying to be me on purpose.
Nice. Hey, well, everybody, we're glad that you're here. And you are stuck with Adam and I. Beth is going to be on sabbatical for the next couple of months. And so we've been walking through a series on subtypes. But our hope in this series of podcasts, as it always is here at Your Enneagram Coach, is to help people see themselves with astonishing clarity so that they can break free from self-condemnation, fear, and shame by knowing and experiencing the unconditional love, forgiveness, and freedom in Christ. So this is now our third episode in a series where we're addressing the instinctual subtypes. Now, why is this even an important topic? Is there any practical relevance? Yeah, there's tremendous practical relevance. Where hopefully you've listened to the previous two episodes, but just in summary, the instincts are actually what happens. They're the precursor to our actual Enneagram types, and so we have these initial instincts that happen, and then our core motivations and the relational styles of our type come online. So it's very important to understanding how we think, feel, and behave in particular ways. And additionally, it helps explain the differences between people of the same type. Often people think that we stereotype or put people in a box. Well, as we say here at YEC, people are much more like a Sherwin-Williams paint color. There's hundreds of varieties of different blues and reds. And so it leads to more curiosity, more surprise rather than presumption or stereotyping. And then also when we start to learn about these subtypes and the instincts that drive them, it becomes an opportunity to learn about ourselves and our relationships. Why do our spouses, why do our children, why do our closest relationships perceive the world in particular ways? And there are strengths that we gravitate towards, and then there are some that we're more blind to. This is an opportunity just to see the world from a different perspective and promoting the idea of curiosity and compassion towards one another. And so, Adam, why don't you give us just a brief description of the instincts themselves?
Yes. Three basic instincts, human instincts for survival. And we have all three. We use all three. One is typically more dominant. One sits somewhere in the middle, second. And then the third one is more repressed. But the first instinct is self-preservation. This instinct helps us to take care of our own safety and our health and our well-being and make sure that we have all the resources we need to sustain life. The second instinct is social. The social instinct helps us to be aware of other people. It's more of a herd mentality. So whereas self-preservation is I'm thinking about me, the social instinct is I'm thinking about the group and how my actions and attitudes affect the group. And then the third instinct is the one-to-one instinct, or some call it the sexual instinct. And this instinct helps us to have an intense drive for intimacy, a constant awareness of the chemistry between ourselves and others. And those with the one-to-one instinct are energized and find their sense of survival or security in deep one-on-one relationships. Now, we've said this in the last couple episodes, but what forms your subtype is when your instinct meets your Enneagram type. That gives you your subtype. Instinct plus Enneagram type equals subtypes. And each Enneagram type has 3 subtypes. So that means there are 27 total instinctual subtypes within the Enneagram. So a lot of different shades. As you said, Jeff, it explains why, they're, 2 different people of the same Enneagram type can manifest so differently. And subtypes plays a huge role in that. And so, you and I have been taking these episodes to walk through all 27 subtypes. And in the last episode, we looked at the heart triad. And in this episode, we're talking about the head triad, types 5, 6, and 7. So anything you want to add there, Jeff, before we jump into our first up to the plate, which is type 5?
Yeah, the one thing that we want to make sure we explain is that each of the triads has, or each of the types have a counter type. This is a type that is not stereotypical of the type and sort of responds against the core motivation. So we'll talk a little bit about this like with the type 6. So rather than yielding to the fear, the counterphobic 6 is one who sort of moves towards the fear, but does so in a way that still has the same core motivations, but does so with a degree of kind of with some energy or some passion, some angst behind it. So we're going to talk about a counter type for each of the types, which is an uncharacteristic of the type, but is still shaped by the core motivations of that type. Adam, why don't you dive in and let's talk about type 5?
Yes, let's talk about type 5. The self-preservation 5, my self-preservation 5 friends, also known as the Castle 5. This might be the most 5 of all 5s.
That's awesome.
Their internal walls or fences can be a little taller and thicker than the other 5s. They have primary focus on personal space, independence. One of the ways they learn, again, is self-preservation, is thinking about me first. So their need to feel safe, the core underlying emotional struggle for those in the head triad is anxiety or fear. And there's a core common desire for security and safety. And so the way they're approaching this with this self-preservation instinct is to isolate, to build a fortress. That's why we call them the Castle 5. They're a little more private, more self-sufficient, more withdrawn. We did an Enneagram podcast, Jeff, a while back about if there was a zombie apocalypse. It was just a fun episode, if you remember. If there was a zombie apocalypse, which Enneagram type would survive? And we all agreed at the end of the episode that we pretty much all agreed that we think the self-preservation 5 would be the ones.
They'd never come out of hiding.
No, they have everything they need inside their bunker. They're self-sufficient, totally independent.
Dude, all of the social subtypes would be a wreck.
Oh my goodness.
A wreck.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this just maybe it was this morning. I had gone on my walk this morning and I saw a TikTok whenever I got home, was drinking some water and cooling down. And I saw a TikTok from the movie Martian with Matt Damon. Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But like when he got initial feedback from when he finally connected back with Earth, but it was just through a robot or the rover. And I thought, oh man, that must have been so humane that he actually got feedback from another human, but it was just the camera.
Just the camera.
That shows you how social I am.
Yeah.
Whereas the self-pres 5 is like, oh, finally.
Yeah.
Get a planet to myself.
Yeah. Yeah, they're
Why
like
did you come
they're
back?
they're, they're watching they're watching the movie and they're like, "Where's the tension in this movie? This feels like heaven on earth."
Okay, no, this is just a stereotype.
It's
We're
just a
joking with the
stereotype. Yeah.
self-pres fives, just
Oh
joking
yeah.
around. It's
Yeah.
we
Just having
talked
some.
about El Macordo and the Jackal earlier, a couple episodes ago. So
Yeah.
sometimes we get going, but
Well,
yeah,
and to that point of this is all, we have
that's
to.
another series of what we would do when stranded on a planet. That
Yeah. Self-pres fives would be like, yeah, this is, I can do this. And it's not that they don't want relationship. That's we are
right.
relational beings. It's not that they don't want relationship. They enjoy the company of people that they trust, and they love to especially share their knowledge with others. But they're going to need some extra time to build up their relational reserves and time to recharge after being with people. And so they're just a little more, typically a little more introverted, a little more comfortable with themselves. But it's not that they don't love people. It's not that they don't want relationship. Their strengths are they can be, their self-reliance is a strength. They're very practical. They're very resourceful. They're very knowledgeable. Challenges is that they can become too isolated. There's isolation is can be death to the soul, and they can become too isolated. They can become too detached, and if they're not careful, they can hoard themselves. They can not give away themselves or their knowledge, and so that is our self-preservation five, friends. Let's talk about the social five. Um, the social five is we sometimes call it the totem five. It's the most extroverted five. It's probably a little
Which that
more.
sounds like an oxymoron. The extroverted five.
Yeah, yeah,
But when you see the description, you start to realize, like, oh yeah, I totally can see how this would work. There's still fiveness, but they're using their fiveness to engage with people, not to avoid people. They want to
that's
be
right.
of help to people.
That's right. That's right. And we don't call this the countertype. You'll understand why the 1-to-1's the countertype in just a moment. But it does seem a bit counter to the five, that to think about an extroverted five. But their focus is on sharing their knowledge for the good of the group. If they're going to show up relationally, they're showing up for the good of society, and they're focused on intellectual pursuits, how to use their knowledge to contribute to the whole of society. They still have strong boundaries. They might share their knowledge, values, and ideas, but not their space, time, and resources. Are typically going to be a little more guarded with that. They do relate deeply, but only to people who seem to share the same ideals with them. So that's kind of what they're looking for. Strength, man, their knowledge is a huge strength. And analytical skills, very articulate. They make excellent teachers. Just a wealth of knowledge. Challenges is, again, they can be overly detached. They can come across as condescending. An Enneagram 5 with a lot of knowledge has to be careful. That can come across a bit condescending, even if they don't intend to. And they can struggle with social engagement, even though their instinct is to be more social. That can cause some anxiety for them. So that's the social 5. And then we round it out with the 1-to-1 5. This is your countertype. This we sometimes call this the confident 5. So 5s are in that head triad. They tend to be, if we're gonna choose one side of the brain, they tend to lean more toward the left side of the brain. But the subtype, this 1-to-1 subtype, can often appear like a 4, type 4, and maybe even mistype as a type 4, because they're deep feelers. They're more emotionally expressive, and this is why we call them the countertype. They have a strong romantic side to them, creative, emotional flair. They are able to form deep connections with one or a few trusted people. Again, this is 1-to-1, so think about this is a survival instinct that is moving toward deep one-on-one relationships, and so they can form really deep connections. still maintaining their privacy and their independence, though. They desire to find an ideal partner who represents absolute love and trust, but they want this relationship to be contained and private. And their strengths are they have a great capacity for intimacy, loyal, perceptive, creative, emotional IQ. But again, the challenge is they can be possessive. They can struggle with vulnerability. They can be overly secretive. And so that is your counter type 1-to-1 subtype of a 4. So Jeff, that's
It's
the type
interesting
4
hearing that.
or type
Yeah,
5 rather, type 5.
Yeah, it's interesting to think of the countertype not so much in their engagement with people. I guess I'm thinking that it's more focused on the heart versus actually being a public figure. And you can kind of see this stereotypically when you think of the different types of professors that are out there now. I mean, any type could be a professor type, but there are some intellectual giants that are much more civil in contribution. Like they're much more open about their resources and their research, versus like the counter type of the 5 is much more focused on emotion and being willing to feel the impact of these relationships. But, you can be a public figure, but not necessarily engaged with your heart. You're just engaging with culture from the point of the mind and intellectualizing things. But the counter type really, it does go inward and experiences some of the emotions.
Yep, they allow themselves to go inward. Yeah.
Now, Adam, tell us a little bit about just the thinking triad in general. We spent a little bit of time regarding the shame of the heart triad. Tell us about the fear of the thinking triad.
Yeah. So your thinking triad or head triad, it's in that thinking center, is going to be your types 5, 6, and 7. And, triads are Enneagram groups of three types that are joined together by a common emotional struggle and a common desire. And the common emotional struggle for those in the head triad is going to be an emotional struggle with anxiety, or some just use the word fear. Some Enneagram teachers will use the word anxiety, and I think there's just some overlap, and both of those are true. And so there's a common fear there, and the common desire that they're all longing for is a sense of security. And each of them have their own, defense mechanisms or survival strategies to try to feel secure. But the 5, 6, and 7 are certainly joined by that, and it's joined in those common struggles and common desires. And so it's going to show up in different ways. Fives, stereotypically are, have stronger boundaries and walls to try to deal with their anxiety and keep them secure. 6s are going to try to make sure they're prepared. They've thought through everything. And then 7s are going to just have more fun. Yeah. So 7s are going to deal with their anxiety and sense of security with another experience or whatever. And so, but that's your head triad.
Well, similar to how we talked about the heart triad related to their shame, the anxiety or fear is the cave that this triad fears, and yet is the opportunity that they have. So for the type 5s, how are you relating to the anxiety and the fear? Are you much more inclined towards your basic need? And so maybe you're like we mentioned earlier, sort of the castle and more self-preservation, more tied to isolation. Are you doing that through intimate relationships, or your much more closer relationships? Or are you doing that socially, where you're trying to actually help people, engage with people to help resource them for how to engage in life? But you can see that they're responding not so much out of their shame or fear of rejection, but it's how they are engaging with the world, but in reference to what? And there are other areas where a type 5 may be blind to. So you may be much more socially oriented, but less reflective on your own personal need to make sure that you get recover from all of your social engagement and find yourself burning out because you're working so hard, or that you bring such an intensity, the confident, the counter type 1 to 1 5, where you're so focused on these primary relationships that you actually become more possessive, and you're less vulnerable with some of these other relationships where you're experiencing acceptance. You're experiencing like there's tremendous value and dignity that you offer to others, but you're so focused on these primary relationships that you're missing the bigger picture. So you see how each of these subtypes are relating to this core struggle of the thinking triad. Adam, is there anything else you wanted to say before I go into type 6?
No, I'm ready for you to dive into type 6. Both of us are 6s, so I'm just on the edge of my seat here.
Yeah, maybe we ought to
I'm
make this
excited.
a type 6 podcast. Like, forget all this 9 stuff that Beth was bringing. Like, we could just take this over. We're going to bring 6y back.
That's
What
right.
we're going to do.
That's right. And I'm sure all the 9s would really appreciate us just forgetting what all the 9s.
They've wanted
forget
us
about
to
it.
stop focusing on them. Like,
Yeah.
stop with talking about us. Golly,
Yeah,
it's
man,
always
come on.
about them.
Come on.
Both
Both Jeff and I are married to 9s, so these are jokes. These are called jokes. This is when 6s get really comfortable, and our 9 starts to surface a little bit, and we start to get a little.
Dude, I would have been kicked under this table so many times by now. People probably have caught on. Like sometimes Beth giving me the look, or now there's just an energy that I get that like she didn't have to say anything, and I already know. I already know.
Yeah, same.
So
same.
Same. That's so funny. Oh man. Okay. Well, I don't know if there's any other 6s that we need to invite on the podcast, but I mean, we could make this a whole thing. I mean, I forgot. What was your joke about the mark of the best?
So there were two other 6s that were you and I are both in relationship with, and the three of us used to joke about starting a podcast called 6
You're hesitant to say it.
I'm very, 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 very hesitant because I want to make sure everybody interprets these as jokes. 666 mark of the best was the joke. And for obvious reasons, that podcast
Enneagram humor at its best right there. Oh, that is so funny. Oh man. Oh, that's so great. Yeah, I mean it's a problem in our team meetings when we get going. The rest of the team, all the 1s and the 9s are like, "Hey, can we get back on schedule here in the agenda?"
Oh, yeah. And thank God we have those people, man, on our team, and that they don't shame us for our banter because 6s have a friendly.
Really? Are you sure, Adam? Because I feel the shame. I feel it sometimes. Really? Are you guys going to keep doing this?
Okay, maybe there's a dose. Maybe it's healthy shape. I don't know. Maybe maybe there's a dose of like, hey, Adam and Jeff, can we grow up for a second and have a meeting? But anyway, I appreciate the banter. I'm here for it.
I like the banter. It's like there's comedic relief. Yeah. I mean, we do these podcasts like a thriller. Like there's an intense thriller movie that you're watching, and we are the comedians that provide some levity.
That's right.
In all of this, all the drama and intrigue. Like we lighten it up.
Lighten up a little bit, people. Lighten up a little bit.
And then there are some 6s that are kind of like, no, I'm going to need you counterphobic guys to shut up. I'm going to need you to be quiet.
Yeah. And you're going to tell us about those 6s as you get into these subtypes. Yeah. That's what's funny. That's what's funny. Even other 6s are looking at us and going, hey, guys, can we?
You're not representing well.
Yeah. Please don't tell other people that you're a 6 because this is not the vibe I'm going for.
It's so funny. Oh, okay. Well, let's talk about self-pressed sixes. These are the warm sixes. These are the most phobic of all the sixes. I can remember early on, I thought I was an 8 because Beth's mom is a self-pressed 6, and I'm like, I am not like your mom. And so, but they're the most phobic. They've yielded to this internal fear and anxiety that they have. Their fear expresses itself in insecurity, worry, and self-doubt. Their focus is on safety, security, and stability for themselves. They're cautious, prepared, practical. To feel safe, they may take on a surrogate family or form alliances with friends or people that they trust. This softens their fear of abandonment and being without support. The strength of the warm sixes are that they're reliable, hardworking, vigilant, warm, friendly. They're the best of the sixes, right? But they can the anxiety can be overwhelming to them and even to others. That can lean or blend over into suspiciousness. There's resistance to change and being able to hold change, and so you'll find them reverting back to sort of compulsive desires to find security, and they're just plagued by self-doubt, where it's kind of like I know that as a counterphobic 6, I just want to tell them, like, make a decision. You got to move. You got to move forward. You can't be waiting for everyone else to make the decisions for you. That's the self-pres 6. The social 6, these are kind of the stereotypical 6s. They're the dutiful ones. Their focus is on belonging to a group and adhering to the social norms, the appropriate 6s. These are the 6s that can oftentimes be mistyped as a type 1. They want to be good and they want to obey the rules. And they know all of the rules, even the rules, the unspoken rules. They can be black and white in their thinking. They can be very dualistic, I won't say bipolar, but it's right or wrong, good and bad. There's no gray. And they deal with their anxiety and fear by striving to be good and to do what's right. That's how they resolve their fear. They gain security by following the rules and the social norms of the group. And so whenever they enter into the group, they're trying to figure out what's the norm, how does this group operate, what are the unwritten rules and expectations. Their strengths are that they're responsible, dutiful, community-oriented, which, responsible and dutiful, we just talked about that with the self-pres, but realize that what they're in reference to is different. Mm-hmm. This is in reference to the group versus their own personal security. They're more community-oriented and focused on what is best for the group, not necessarily it can come at the expense of themselves. The challenges are that they can be overly conformist. They can be very fearful of authority because they're so inclined to follow authority that they lose themselves sometimes with authority, and they struggle to trust themselves. They're always looking outside of themselves, something outside of themselves to solve their internal doubt. Well, the next one, I don't know if we want to talk about them or not, because let's be honest with you, it's a problem. It's diagnosable.
It's diagnosable. You still mostly identify as 1-to-1 as your first go-to.
I'm still a 1-to-1. I can certainly see other instincts coming up. I experience them in different ways. The social aspects of me, well, no, it's still 1-to-1 because even whenever I identify what the social norms are, I still kind of push boundaries. Okay, I said kind of. I push boundaries. I'm trying to soften it up, thinking that now coming up on 50 that I'm softer. I'm not, to be honest with you. Yeah. I'd rather be the provocative one. And so these 1-to-1s, they're almost contrary. 6s are known for their courage because they've overcome so much internal fear and self-doubt. So the 1-to-1s are known as strength and beauty. Mm-hmm. They're the counterphobic of the 6s. And instead of caving into the fear, yielding to the fear, they actually press into it with strength and bravado, both verbally and physically. It's interesting, though I've heard Beth say that of all the Enneagram types, it's not the 8s that are the bullies. It's the counterphobic 6s that are impressing their strength. 8s don't have the same need to impose their strength only when necessary, versus a counterphobic 6 will do it unnecessarily, where they
That's right.
misread the situation.
That's right.
They can mistype as an 8. That was very true in my own life for 5 years. And then I do remember the time when the therapist said, "You're a 6," and I was upset. There were
Yeah.
other words that I would use to describe how upset I was, but I didn't touch the Enneagram for a year. I was so upset by it because I didn't want to acknowledge how much anxiety I was actually experiencing. I'd much rather just plow my way through it. Their motto is the best defense is a good offense. You've probably even heard Adam say that in our other podcast. I remember him saying that. They exhibit boldness, bravery, and strength, but oftentimes what's underneath that is anxiety and fear.
Mm-hmm.
And they still have the inner struggle with anxiety, self-doubt, and worst case scenario thinking, but they deal with it differently. They move into it. Their strengths are they're creative, courageous, loyal, and determined, but the challenge is they can be too aggressive and struggle with trust of other people. So they're much more distrustful, and they're sort of provocative in how they communicate. They're a little passive aggressive in how they communicate that mistrust. Adam, what would you like to add to 6s?
Yeah, I think I shared this a couple episodes ago, but in my own journey, my sort of subtype stack would be, I think these days, I really do. I think I identify most with the self-preservation. I don't think that those around me, and again, I'm having to walk through some shame just to say this, but I think it's true that those around me don't experience me as manifesting a ton of anxiety. I think I still have a pretty strong one-to-one kind of counterphobic. I think one-to-one is the number 2. It used to be more of a number 1 for me. I think in my early days, I was much more of a one-to-one 6. I did not have a clue how to deal with I didn't even give myself permission to be afraid. So I wouldn't have admitted I was afraid. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have said I was afraid. I was strong. That's what I was. And so, whether that was on a football field or doing something ridiculously risky and dangerous, I just wanted to be strong, and I wanted to be, bigger than the fear. These days, I have a much more I have a complicated but better relationship to my fear, and I think I identify more with self-preservation. I don't think people would say that I'm manifesting constantly phobic. I don't like appear to be anxious and sweaty and overly worried, but but I am driven by a do I, am I enough, and do I have enough, and do we have enough, and are we going to be okay? Those are the main questions
Yeah.
at this stage in my life that sort of swim around in me, and that instinct shows up a lot, and the social instinct is there too. Um, I definitely have I definitely care about the group, and I can be the black sheep in a group in terms of like I kind of want to break
Yeah.
the group's rules or push against the rules a little bit. And
I'm
that's always
curious,
been there.
Adam, knowing that I am a leader and a rule breaker, do you find that there's less or more inclination to break the rules of the group?
Like any group. Wait, are you
No,
asking me?
like with the YEC team. Yeah, like
Oh,
so. Yeah, because there's another rule breaker. Do you feel like, oh yeah, that role's taken, don't need to step into it, or do you find like, oh no, I have permission because this guy breaks the rules all the time?
I don't know. The best way I know how to answer that, and this is me being totally honest with you, is I don't really know. I just know that with our team, I feel full permission to be myself. That's the best way I know how to answer that. So,
Well, that's why everybody wants to work for YEC.
yeah,
Come to work for YEC. You can be yourself.
yeah. So I feel like, with our group, with our team, it very much my social instinct shows up in like, this is my tribe. I want to, we call 6s the faithful guardians. I very much feel that guardianship, that protective, like I want to do what's best for the team. I don't want to in any way, shape, or form sabotage the people that I love the most. Um, and and so I don't think there are any white sea rules that
Yeah.
I break, but sometimes I'll tell you where I see it show up is more like in the, gosh, this is probably a whole other podcast episode, but within the rules of my family of origin, and then the rules of the theological tribes and churches that I've been a part of.
Dude, oh man.
That's where
Yeah,
I
now
see
you're
it
getting
show up.
home. Yeah, you're
That's
hitting
where I
home.
that's where I see it show up.
You know,
So
I in regards to stacking, and I've heard the vocabulary before, I don't relate to the idea of instincts as stacking as much as
ebb and flow.
domains I access. I
Yeah.
think of it more almost like a pie chart. Like these are just areas because
Yep.
there are certain places where I do access it. Like
I agree.
I grew up in a home where my parents weren't as engaged, and so I'm very observant socially because I'm sort of having to learn how to parent myself. That's part of the insecurity I carry as a 6. And so I found myself observing social cues, or so that because I always felt behind on social cues. And yet at the same time, I have a lot of ambivalence and antagonism. Like, are you going to accept me? And so I want to break those rules, but I'm very attuned to them. I can get very focused on close relationships, particularly the ones that I trust. That's why I resonate with an 8, because there's a circle of security, a circle of trust of a small group of people that I would really show my true self with. And then there's still, I feel like I'm always in a mindset of scarcity. The shoe's going to drop, the worst case scenario. I could potentially screw something up. Those kinds of things. So these are just domains of my heart, or energies of my heart that I access at different situations. In some situations, I am much more social or much more one-to-one or self-pres than in others. It's similar to like with wings. It's not either or, but the wings show up in healthy and unhealthy ways depending upon the particular circumstance. And so I don't know if that resonates with other people. It's just my own personal experience.
Resonates with me. I think stacking, and you, I'm the one that's been using that language, but I do think that stacking and thinking about, I believe that thinking about the instincts in a sequential way, where they're ordered, number 1, number 2, number 3, is a little bit Western, or a little bit, it's a little too linear. It's a little bit too left brain.
Yeah.
I do think there's an ebb and flow. I think, again, I've said, we've been talking about in the last few episodes that your brain is designed and wired for connection and protection. And I think that in different settings and different moments, different days, different seasons, different contexts, these instincts will show up to help you survive with connection and protection, however these instincts need to show up. And I think there is an ebb and flow, and it is contextual. And it may be true that you maybe notice one more than the other typically, but they'll show up for you when they need to. So
Awesome.
We want to talk about
take on type 7.
Let's do it. Let's talk about type 7. Our type 7 friends. The self-preservation 7s, these are sometimes called the keepers of the castle. They're focused on ensuring physical and material well-being. Remember, this is self-preservation, so they're thinking about, what are my needs? What do I need to survive?
Mm-hmm.
They're typically more in touch with their anxieties, so they will strive to make alliances or look for exciting opportunities, or they'll turn to self-indulgence in order to soothe and meet their needs. Man, they're charming, they're fun, they're talkative, they're upbeat, they're great networkers. Self-preservation 7s are just fun. People admire them and love to be around them. Some of the challenges can be that they can be overly self-indulgent. They can struggle with moderation. They can become impulsive as they're seeking to take care of themselves and take care of their needs and soothe. Again, in the head triad, the emotional struggle, the common struggle is anxiety. So, they can be a little too self-indulgent sometimes and be impulsive and battle, moderation as they're seeking to soothe those anxieties.
It's interesting how that lands on me, Adam. I'm not sure why this came up, but this comes up for a lot for me as I think if I put my pastor hat back on. Because you can think of the self-pres instinct, the way it presents with an Enneagram type, and moralize it. and actually shame it and put
Mm.
this under greed or selfishness versus an innate desire that we have
Yeah.
that somehow gets too, I don't know how I misdirected, I think might be a good term for it,
Yeah.
where it's more out of survival or scarcity, where they're trying to care for themselves, but then they just get hounded on, like, stop being so selfish, stop
Yeah.
being so self-focused.
Yeah.
And you're missing the real core longing and innate human desire there of it's just a misdirected desire or inclination that God has given them, and being acted on out of scarcity and survival rather than believing who God is, that he can provide for them.
That's right. And Jeff, there's a healthy, good, beautiful, true, right way to do self-preservation. Self-preservation in and of itself is not that instinct is not bad. That I would argue that instinct is necessary.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's necessary in a fallen world. Like, yes, you need to lock your doors. Yes, you need to plan and prepare. Yes, you need to make sure. I think it was Parker Palmer. Parker Palmer has that great line where he says, "Self-care," and you could substitute that with self-preservation, "is not selfish. It is simply good stewardship of the one gift I have to offer."
Mm.
So, yeah, man, taking care of yourself and doing what is best for you and what you need to do is not fundamentally selfish. Sometimes we use that
Yeah.
line from Paul in Philippians about looking to the interests of others. But you know what's fascinating? He actually says, look not only to your own interests, but also to the interests of
Mm.
others. So he never says don't look to your own interests. He just says,
Right.
hey, as you consider yourself, which you should, also consider others.
Yeah.
And so I think the self-preservation instinct can get a bad rap, and it's actually essential. Yeah.
Cool. Let's take on the
Um,
social countertype.
let's talk about the social countertype 7. This is the sacrificial 7. They tend to be less self-indulgent, more focused on fulfilling others' needs before their own, and so that's their social instinct at play. As a way of surviving, they will kind of go against their gluttony. That's the core weakness of a 7, is that gluttony, that gobbling up experiences. But they'll kind of go against that and sacrifice themselves for the group. They can mistype. They can be so focused on others' needs that they can mistype as a 2 or even as a type 9 because they're so optimistic. They have such a positive outlook on life, and there's a certain peace and joy that just they manifest. And so their strengths are they're very charismatic, they're optimistic, they are sacrificially loving. The challenges can be is that they can be superficial, they can be too avoidant of their emotions. They can struggle with commitment, and so this is some of you can see how that can cause problems in the groups that they're trying to serve. Um, Lastly,
Or I
yeah,
mean,
go
I've
ahead.
noticed it even with like Beth's dad is a social 7, and
Mm,
it's serving too many groups. Like he would at times
yeah,
expend himself,
and that's the struggle
finding
with
so much
commitment.
joy serving everybody.
Yep, 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 and that's where you get into the struggle with commitment is because now I'm overextended,
Yeah.
and I've said yes to too many things, and I'm also saying no even to taking care of myself, and that's where you get the superficial aspect. Is it's like, okay, I'm spread way too thin.
Yeah.
And but it can be really hard for social 7s to say no. The discipline of saying no feels like they're doing something wrong. They feel almost a sense of
Yeah.
shame for saying no, or fear. It's a fear of missing out, or fear of letting others down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so let's talk about one-to-one. This is the last subtype for the 7. Some call this the idealistic 7. These are dreamers. They can really live in their imaginations. The one-to-one 7s, if you want to know how to love a one-to-one 7 well, those one-to-one 7s in your life, listen to their stories and their dreams and their visions and their imaginations, just without trying to get into like, okay, now how are you going to do that? Or just listen to them. They get almost
Affirm the wow before the how.
that's oh, mic drop.
Well, I
Affirm the
can't drop my
wow.
mic. I'm on a mic stand, but I got that from someone else. Yeah, I remember a John Piper quote. He said, "I've never had an original thought in my life, and if I did, I doubt it." Like that's such a sexy thought.
That's
Like
that is
yeah, that
cute.
line
Yeah.
came from somebody else, but that's what came to mind for me.
Yeah.
Honor the wow before you
Honor the
get
wow.
into the how.
Yeah, and that's such a good word for those who are in relationship with the 1-to-1 sevens. They are full of ideas. They have huge dreams, and their imaginations are wild and beautiful. And more than they get a kick out of executing these ideas, they just love to share them, talk about them. That they get just almost just as much, or they get fulfillment out of just having these ideas and being able to share them. So they often envision something bigger and more spectacular than what is common or realistic. So if you're married to a 1-to-1 seven, that can be, a struggle is like, your spouse has these visions of grandeur. And sometimes it's like, hey, let's get back on the ground and talk about what's actually realistic here. But again, they're idealistic dreamers. This is
Yeah.
who they are. They want to pursue and share their dreams within the context of intense one-on-one relationships. So that's that
Mm.
one-to-one desire. This is how they're trying to connect with you. Think about think about their sharing of their ideas as a bid for connection.
Yep.
They want to connect with you. They want to relate deeply to you. And again, this is how they feel secure. This is a survival instinct. Their strengths are they're great visionaries, very inspiring, lighthearted. They're explorers and adventurers. Challenges is that they can be a bit escapists. They can be overly idealistic, and they can struggle to stay grounded. So I actually have a good friend, if he's listening, who is a 1-to-1 seven, and at different times in our life, he has called me the string to his kite. Uh, he's the
Mm-hmm.
he's the kite, and he's flying around, and I'm the string, or at least I'm the one holding the string. That's like, okay, we also need some connection to the ground here. So, uh,
Now, I don't know if we've ever talked about this before or if it's even a topic within the subtype conversation, but what subtype do you think your seven wing is?
well, that's a fascinating conversation.
Because I
Um,
resonate with the social and one to one.
yeah.
El McCordo wants to have fun with people, and I find myself doing the kind like in my neighborhood. I've bought a cotton candy machine. I've bought a popcorn machine.
Oh,
I
yeah.
host movie nights for the kids. Like that sevenness, I collect bourbon, not because I drink a lot of bourbon,
You wanna
but
share
because
it.
I know that other men do, and I
You
want to
wanna
share
you
it.
wanna share it. Yeah, yeah, you wanna share it. I
Yeah.
think I think my 7 wing is somewhere I notice more social and self-preservation. I have to be careful. What did I tell you right before we hit record? I said, "Ugh, Nike knows exactly how to market me. They know how to they know how to get me." And they send me these emails and stuff about,
Yeah.
this, Jordan 1 shoe is, 25% off with your membership code right now, and it's like, I think I have a little bit I can be impulsive. My 7 wing is self-indulgent. It likes to spend, and then my core type is like, "What are we doing here? Like, we're supposed to be saving resources." My 7 my 7 wing can be a bit
Oh,
a bit
dude, I totally
spend
feel
happy.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the ways that I don't like El McCordo because he loves Amazon.
Oh, yeah, dude. Love Amazon. Yeah.
And even my five, because I have a propensity to buy books. We've talked a lot about that, but that is interesting to subtypes of our wings. Take
Subtypes of our
that.
wings. Yeah. That's a
Blew
whole
your
that's
mind.
a whole other series.
That
Um,
seriously.
well, Jeff, I
Wow.
think I think that rounds out our head type, which brings us to the end of this episode. Do you have any closing thoughts for our audience?
No, hey, we're so thankful that you decided to stay around with us. And I'd anticipated this particular episode would go longer because we're talking about sixes. But we do hope that you're benefiting from all of this that we're
Yes.
sharing. We're so
Yep.
grateful that you're staying around and hopefully find benefit for your own life as you think about yourself and also these other types you have a relationship with. In our next episode, we're going to round it out with the 8, 9s, and 1s. And so the gut triad, we're going to talk about all the various subtypes there. So, hey, if you haven't subscribed, be sure to hit subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to these podcasts. Be sure to leave a comment. Let us know. Adam and I will be taking a look at those and maybe even commenting on those whenever we have a moment. And then also, don't forget, share this with some friends. If you're reminded of people, you hear Adam and I as we talk through different people come to mind as we're thinking through these subtypes, be sure to pass it along to them, and hopefully it can be of help to them and affirming and a compassionate expression saying, hey, I see you and I know you,
Yeah.
and I love having you in my life. Yeah, grateful for you to stay around.
Yeah.
Adam, you want to close us out?
Yes. Join us for our next episode. Jeff and I will be talking about the instinctual subtypes within the gut triad. So types 8, 9, and 1. So if you're an 8, 9, or 1, or you're in relationship in any way, shape, or form to an 8, 9, or 1, you want to tune into these episodes or this next episode. And we hope you remember always that the Enneagram reveals your need for Jesus, not your need to work harder. It is the gospel that transforms us. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.